Hey, everybody, how's it going? This is Rob Turley, your host at Down the Rabbit Hole podcast, brought to you by White Rabbit Intel. Hyper target your market and predict which prospects are a best fit to reach out to and to sell to before the need to engage with them. Fantastic stuff. Today, I have Simon Severino with me. He's awesome in so many ways I cannot even describe. Just the way our corporate values actually align is kind of incredible, just from reading up on him and talking to him for a short period of time. But he is a saint in my mind because he's bringing Agile to the world. When I say that, he's like the Agile guy. Agile is not just a process that you've heard for project management or for product teams or for engineering teams or for design and development teams. No, it should be applied, in my opinion, at least, to every part of the business because of how operationally sound it is, how lean it is, and how well things can get done with the processes that are in place. Things often do not get lost. They don't get fall behind. Everybody's on top of each other, and it has a joint or a mutual accountability system built right into it, so things don't get overlooked. So, Simon, please, if you don't mind, introduce yourself. It'd be great.
Hello, Rob. Hello, everybody. Excited to be here. Yeah, I'm Simon Severino. For the last 20 years, I've been doing only strategy consulting. So I work with executive teams, helping them with go-to-market strategy and go-to-market execution, right? Launching cool stuff, getting it there where it needs to be. And in order to do that, we have to align the whole organization, of course, and then we have to crush it in the markets. And that's my thing. I hang out in these executive teams and help them do that. That's what I did for 20 years. And as you say, I had an itch. I was like, wait a moment. What is really important right now? Important is that we can, as an organization, if we run a business, I think that the resilience, the thing that really matters is that we can adapt to stuff that happens outside, at least at the same pace. So that's my definition, actually, of Agile is the rate of change in the organization is at least as high as the rate of change outside. So outside, we have a market crash. Can we react as fast to that by changing our products, our processes, or not? If not, we have a problem. And now we are in this quarter where the markets are literally surprising us every week. So how do we react to that? And so I had a couple decades time to research that, and we came up with, as you said, with what works in Agile, because you have these short iterations, and so you get these signals quickly, the weak signals, and you can work with that. And I was like, can we do this for how to run a company? Because the CEOs, the people who run small, mid-sized companies, these are the people who really need it. Because when the markets crashes on them, they are vulnerable. And so they need to see that wave coming and prepare for that. And how do you do that? I was missing the tools, so I built the tools for my own business. And now we share these tools with our clients. And they became 274 modules in the book. But basically it's, okay, what do? We don't know what happens outside. How do we prepare? How do we create the processes that will be a radar and that will tell us when the things start to happen, so that we can?
It's like you're stomping out the spark before it turns into a fire, 100%. And when you're saying react, do you mean respond? Because reacting is not good, responding is. When you have the systems in place, then you can respond to it in a reactionary way, where the reaction is a response, right? That's the magic behind it. And yeah, like you said, those very low frequency issues start surfacing, and you can start seeing them bubbling up, where you can solve the problem before the problem even becomes reality.
Exactly. And now how many people out there have a system that tells them, hey, next week, this is happening right now. So how do we do it? We have 3 strategies, 3 habits, 3 numbers. It's pretty simple to implement. And it tells you really the weak signals, as you say, so that you can respond. And the 3 strategies are, can we increase by 25% our conversion rate, by 25% the frequency of our sales, so reducing sales time or reducing churn rate if you have a subscription business. And the third one is, can we increase by 25% the price that we can charge for the same offer? With these three things as a filter, green, yellow, red, we filter all the projects coming in, and that helps you stay focused on a few important projects. Because one problem that we all have, we have too much on our plates. 100 moving parts, we can do this, we can try that, and maybe even an NFT on top of it, right?
Yeah, and usually it's task-based. Everybody's just overloaded with tasks when they shouldn't be. A project or well-defined initiatives, kind of like OKRs, that you want to get completed. Set those up. KPIs are formed out of the OKRs, and then tasks are formed out of the KPIs. So most people are managing with a giant sea or an ocean of tasks that are just the conglomerate of KPI and OKR stuff all over the place, which is unmanageable. You don't know where to start. And it's like, when you open up, let's say Trello, for example, you go, holy shit, when you take a look at it, because there's so much to do, you don't know where to start, and it's intimidating. If you have it structured out in the way that you are alluding to, Simon, it is a whole different story. Like, we do something similar. OKRs are one thing. KPIs are born from the OKRs. Cross out the KPIs, one OKR is complete. If it's something that's continuous, then it's not an OKR because it cannot be completed. It also cannot be a KPI if it cannot be completed. That's just a task, an ongoing task. And then figuring out how to structure it in layers so that your team can actually digest each piece at a time. They can backlog what's not important, and they can bring things through and make sure that everything that's everything that's on the table is ready to be worked on. Everything that's currently being worked on. You can't have 5 different tasks being worked on. That it's humanly impossible. You put it back on deck, right? That's like one of the stages in the process, right? You can't have that. Because it's not possible.
Absolutely. And the next thing is then, okay, now we have a triage system. We have something that can filter, and so helps us stay on the few very important things to do. And then the next thing is to go into the operations, and of course, P&L and cash flow, and look directly there. How is the resilience? So if we have a bad sales month, for example, can we easily have that? Are our costs variable costs or fixed costs? If we have too many fixed costs, that's not resilient. You want to have costs that go up. When you have more work, you have more costs. That's fine, because you have the oxygen for it. And when you have less work, you have less costs. So you want these loops to be really a dynamic, a living thing, that they can grow and they can shrink, but the overall resilience is always the same. The structure is always the same. So we go through the cost positions and see, okay, how many of these fixed costs can be variable costs? For example, suppliers. Do you really need to pay them per day or per ounce? Maybe you can pay them per results, for example, per contribution to your OKRs. And then in that way, when they deliver more, they get more paid, but it also fits your cash flow. These are small differences, but they make a huge difference, because now you can reduce your cost positions, and that increases your profitability. And so the next thing that we look at are
it also goes directly to what's in it for me.
Absolutely. And then we go to the 3 profitabilities: the gross margin, operating margin, and net margin. Because this is the first month of when we work. These are the low-hanging fruits, and these are the biggest levers for a resilient system. Having done that, we usually help them reshape a little bit the way they report their financials, because we want them to be in a shorter time frame than they usually have. And we want to have first the profits in these 3 categories, then the revenues, then the cost positions, cost of work, cost of marketing, cost of sales, cost of innovation, and then the cash flow, and what do we expect to pay, what we expect to get, what's coming in, what's getting out right now. With this blueprint that we give them, they now reduce the time of this report, and it's also a more simple report. It's just these numbers and percentages. But the difference is huge, because now, in terms of what we were talking before, to getting the weak signals, now they're getting much more signals and can take decisions based on their reality. And so that's a little bit better. And also the team is aligned. Usually at this point, marketing and sales start talking more with each other. Marketing and finances start to talk for the first time to each other, etc. So the parts of the business, we simplify and we say it's marketing, sales, operations.
This kind of reminds me a little bit of delving into the process of de-siloing a company, which is important, where, finance usually never talks to sales. Then there's a lot of problems. Sales makes promises that finance is like, excuse me, what? Or sales starts selling something that their product doesn't do. And the product team goes, what? And it all falls apart. Or the CS team is not communicating to the sales team that the onboardings aren't going well because they're not prepping them with expectations enough. Or the CS team is talking to the marketing team saying, hey, you're sending them marketing that they don't want, and they're complaining to me constantly. And that dives right into where I'm known as the RevOps hitman in the market. That's what my name is, right? Rob the RevOps hitman Turley. Now, what does that mean? It means it's a de-siloing of customer success, sales, and marketing. So it works together as one unit. That doesn't mean that's the only unit. That is the revenue unit, but then it also bridges out into operations and then into finance, where they should all be decoupled, whatever exists within there, and then have a bridge where they speak to one another across all fronts. I'm mainly focused personally on the revenue side of things. My business partner is focused on the operations and product side of things. And then the finance side of things is separate, right? And if your company's not talking to itself, where it's bridging all the gaps in between because of how connected everything is, it's usually catastrophic. Or things get lost, forgotten, there's not alignment, a lot of mistakes get made, misunderstandings, and broken systems architecture.
Absolutely. And that's why the sprint team on the client side is always 4 people in our sprints. It's the owner of the business, and then there is somebody from sales, somebody from marketing, and somebody from operations. Without this team of 4, it's not a sprint team. And they have a sprint coach on the other side, a certified strategy sprints coach. And it's a 24/7, 90 days implementation. And as you say, everything is on one page. So we have their goals on one page. We have their process on one page. We call them the playbooks, right? The SOP manual, it's on one page. And we even break down, we call it the focus card. It's one page on a spreadsheet, and it has their 3 years goals, their 1 year's goals, the 3 months activities, the metrics, how will we measure that it's going in the right direction at the right pace, and who is doing what. And that's on one spreadsheet. Now, if they have 15 countries, then we create just a second tab. So you copy the tab, and then that country has an own tab. So if you run 15 countries, first one is headquarter, and then you have per country one. And if it's a very small team, it's just 7 people, but they have everything on one page. And the reason is exactly what you just unpacked there, that whole complexity that you unpacked. We solve it, or we manage it by having everything on one page, and latest every 7 days, everybody updates this page, and we all look at this page and learn from that.
That's the exact same frequency that we do it. Like, we follow that exact process. 7 days, 7 people, and it's across all fronts of every type of division in the business to get all of the KPI metrics gathered weekly to make sure everything's going in the right direction. Sure, there's not much movement that happens, but a little bit of movement is good, because if you were to measure it quarterly, that would be a whole lot of bit of movement. So then you can start seeing and understanding what direction you're going to do a corrective process literally right away, rather than waiting that quarter to see the disaster that's left in its wake, right?
Exactly. And corrective processes, I want a system to have self-correcting loops. I call them self-healing loops and self-correcting loops. If you look at nature, every garden has self-healing loops, self-correcting loops. And that's just how systems are built that are healthy and viable and resilient.
That's why they call it an organization, because it's like an organism. Just like humans, we have healing, or crabs, or anything in nature that's biological in nature, that is an organism. This is an organization. It has the same exact qualities.
The body is incredibly complex, and there are so many subsystems and organs. Some of them are steered directly. For example, the central nervous system, it's just an impulse and say, you do this now, you move your finger. Other systems, like the digestive systems, are completely decentral. They are more like Bitcoin. They are absolutely not centrally steered, and there is nobody saying do this. And then there is the heart. To the heart, we tell exactly what the heart has to do. Now you pump. Now you don't pump. Now you pump. Now you don't pump.
Yeah, you shouldn't have to waste brain power on something that is a well-defined quality of life, where if you don't have it, you will die. You shouldn't have to think about it, because that can create error. It should be an automated process.
Yeah, and it depends on the task, right? So some are better steered decentral, some are steered hybrid, and some are steered central. Like the heart needs central steering. You do this now. And you do this with the digestive system, you mess it completely up. The digestive system is working autonomously in the best. You don't say right now digest what I ate for lunch. It happens. And these principles, how do you apply them now to a team that runs a business? And we came up with the 3 habits: daily habit, weekly habit, monthly habit. They answer the question, how do I react in a situation where outside everything is uncertain? Like everything. You don't have the numbers, you don't have the knowledge, and you don't know what's going on.
You should never let your environment affect you, because you're a closed system, right? And you only open the system when you want to open the system, to let in clients, to let other people influence you, things like that. But then adapting so that you can be well adapted and adjusted to the system that you're inside of, your environment. Your closed system inside that environment will be adapted to that open system, which is the environment, when you do decide to let outside contributors in, which is incredible. Yeah. So you can adapt before you go out into the woods,
And since you are always organizing yourself around the client, around the people you are here to serve, you have always a membrane. You have always an osmosis process coming in and out. We call it the structural coupling. And now, which numbers to get at which time? So the daily habit is everybody writes down, how am I allocating my time today, and what can I delegate tomorrow? So it's a simple process where you literally write down, okay, 6 o'clock in the morning, I go running, 7 breakfast, 8, I have this deep work, then lunch, then afternoon, I give interviews, etc. Literally, you write down just your day, the flow of your day. But this template will ask you 2 questions in the evening before you close down your work. It asks you 2 things. Of all the things that you did, which one will you delegate or systemize tomorrow? And systemize means also, automating, outsourcing, cutting completely, or delegating. And then the second question is, if I would live more freely and more intentionally, what would I do? This is the question, for example, that triggered for me, oh, it's 10 years that I want to write a book. Where is that project? There is no project. Start writing a book. And so this reminds you of thinking bigger, because we tend, to solve problems at hand, and then it's easy to forget the bigger picture and the bigger dream that we had. So this question, if you're not
working toward that in a way that follows the bigger picture, bigger dream, it'll collapse. Mm-hmm.
Exactly. That's the daily habit. And if everybody does this, because most people ask me, Simon, but how do you automate the business? And Simon, how do I automate my sales like you, and my marketing like you? And I say, yeah, you start by writing down the tasks of today. What did you do today? This is how you start. And then you ask yourself 2 questions. What gave me energy or took energy, and which one did really move the whole business forward, and which did just move parts of the business forward? And now you have it. You will have 2-3 things immediately jumping at you. And the first time you write them down, the second time that they come, you act. Now you delegate or cut or automate it, because it's either draining you or it's not moving the whole business forward. So you shouldn't do it in the first place.
Yeah, I did that entire self-assessment myself this past Friday.
Cool. Really?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. So it's finding out, it's like what's moving the whole business, what's not, and then pretty much reframed all of the tasks to fit what needs to happen for the short and midterm, which was the goal, right? So If more people could self-assess like that, I mean, you have a list of things to do. Being able to see how it's going to affect everything. Not every mind is well adapted to doing so, but leadership absolutely should be doing this constantly.
Yeah, we all do it. So the CEO does it, the marketing head does it, everybody does it. And
You would
so
hope.
no, in our team, we do it because we want to be the role model for our clients. Our clients basically see what we are doing and they do it, right? If you tell somebody, hey, you should do this, the probability that they do it is very low. So if you really want something to happen, you start doing it yourself, and then other people will pick it up, right? That's how we operate, at least. And so our clients see, oh, hey, everybody's really doing it in their team, so okay, I'm gonna do it. And then you get their buy-in, because now they tell you, I'm doing my own marketing and I hate it. Okay, so why you're still doing it? Because I don't know how to delegate it. All right, let's write it down. What do you do on Monday? What do you do on Tuesday? Let's write it down. Simple, 5 sentences. And that becomes, now you invite a colleague and you show them the process. You have the first draft of an SOP, a standard operating procedure. And now you have some, supervision loops, first daily, then weekly, then monthly, and then completely self-steered and just reports when you need them. And this is how we start systemizing their business. And then so that was the daily habit as the basis for SOP creations and automations. The second thing is the weekly habit: get your numbers right. So what will tell you that you are moving in the right direction at the right pace? We have a simple dashboard. It's a spreadsheet with 3 visualized numbers, and we negotiate the number for the next 90 days. There is a list of numbers that they are allowed to pick. And so there are marketing numbers, sales numbers, and ops numbers. And they can pick 3 numbers from each one. So typical marketing numbers that they pick are, for example, how many people were on our website this week, how many opted into something, and how many landed on our calendar. Typical sales numbers are, okay, how many did show up from that calendar meeting, right? Show up rate, conversion rate, and deals closed in dollars, usually. These are the typical 3 sales numbers every week. And then we have operations numbers. Okay, how many clients are pissed? How many clients are super fans? And how many referrals did we get? Or if it's a subscription business, what's the churn rate of this week? So how many people did we lose from our current cohort? How many people jumped off? And then you can put in there also upsells or cross sells, because that's actually, for us, we don't count it as a sales team metric. It's more of an operations metric. The first sale happens via the sales team. The second sales happens really via the operations team. They usually are surprised that we see it this way, but I think it's really that way. So if you do good work,
support it. I'm big into this with RevOps, right? Is that the sale doesn't end until they either leave in a pine box or they say, I never want to work with you again, and they leave. The sale never ends. If the salesperson is not continuously maintaining that relationship, even if you do have an account manager, if the sales team is not maintaining that relationship, they're not doing their job, because you are still the original point of contact. You can still upsell them. Ask them how everything's going. Catch up with them. Get a 15-minute meeting. Oh, well, did you know that we have this thing now? Oh, no, I didn't. Yeah, you should definitely give it a try. Talk to your account manager. Boom. Sold indirectly like that. These relationships are important. And the salesperson should be driving that. The operations team should be supporting it. And the account manager specifically should be priming them for it.
Absolutely.
Support,
but if your operations don't deliver on the promise at the beginning, it's really hard then for the salespeople, because you basically lost them, right? You promised more than you delivered. It's over.
Yep.
And that's why it's really important to align there. That's the weekly habit. So in front of them, they have a dashboard, and they tell us that this changes everything. They go like, oh, wow, the whole team looks at 3 things, and we always see if they are green, red, yellow. And it's just 2 lines. One is the current number of this week, and one is the target number. And then you have the topics of how do you pick the target number? Some teams, they start with the target and they have high goal, high targets, and their current numbers are super low. And then other teams, they go just...
that makes it feel like it's an endless battle that you can't win. It's usually not good to shoot for good. So the goals should be, I call them objectives. A realistic goal is an objective. You want to have the BHAGs, like, big, hairy, audacious goals. You want those, but that's not what you should be aiming for. That should be the end goal of what you're trying to achieve. But what you should be aiming for are manageable and accomplishable objectives as like milestones, working your way to that large goal. A lot of people make that mistake, and then it feels like it's impossible to get there, which kills morale.
Yes, the one big goal should only energize you. You see that goal and you go, yeah, I want this. You feel a rush of adrenaline, and you feel meaning, because that is purposeful. That gives you meaning. Oh, that's why we do it.
Yeah, it's the mission and the vision combined into one.
Yeah, but that's not what you measure every 7 days. Every 7 days, you measure the inputs. So, and then, because you cannot create, big things in 7 days, but it's really important that you measure the inputs. So, for example, the marketing numbers. Okay, this is the amount of this is the number of participants we had in events this week. That's an important input, because without events per week, you cannot fill the next department, right? You cannot fill the sales numbers, because they need to close deals. And if you don't create experiences in the marketing department, they will have no authority and no trust to build on to close the deals. And they have to hand over to operations in the right way, as you said. Don't overpromise. Promise exactly what you can deliver, and then over deliver in the operation by stretching a little bit. And then
under promise, over deliver, words to live by.
Exactly. So that's the weekly habit. One dashboard, you see what's going on, and then it doesn't feel like work. It feels more like, you're playing basketball with your friends. When you play basket, you immediately see what the goal is. You don't have to discuss. You see it. It's we land the ball there, and everybody knows what they're doing. Every role is clear, and you are very agile, because you immediately go back, go forward, and adapt to what's going on. Same principles there. Same principles. That's the weekly habit. And the monthly habit.
The mistake of trying to make all of their operations mechanical in nature, highly mechanical in nature, and that's not how it functions. A business is just a makeup of human beings working together toward the same mission, vision, and purpose. You hope, right? But that's all it is. So with all of that, now the human error side of things, how many mistakes can be made? I mean, you can't have that expectation around a highly mechanical and structured process. It needs to have that wiggle room, the give, the organicness to it. Otherwise, it will not fit the style of the actual people executing, the human beings. If you're not appealing to and drawing your operational structure to a human being's abilities and faults, then you're not probably going to be that successful, unless it's a piece of the company that can be fully automated by a machine effectively, and it's the same thing over and over and over and over and over again. It's just a replicable process that doesn't need human involvement. And that's I feel like is one of the greatest mistakes made. That's why Six Sigma, it's great for manufacturing, but not really anywhere else.
And I hope that people do mistakes, actually, because we learn via mistakes. And so that's something that once I called it the return on luck, the ROL. What's your ROL? Because many people were asking themselves, how is it possible that some teams, they crush it and other teams, they don't, but everybody's giving their best. So what is it exactly? What's the difference? What are they doing that's so different to have return on luck? Why are they crushing it and they're not crushing it? And so one thing that came out there is the amount of experiments that you run in parallel. So if you run 50 experiments in parallel, let's say you have one hypothesis, but you run 50 prototypes of the same thing and you test them quickly. And the other team has maybe just a traditional, milestones approach. So they can test maybe 2 things in 3 months. And the first team has tested 50 things in 2 months. Well, guess who's going to crush it? Definitely the team who did 50 experiments, because They failed a lot. From each failure, they learned and they explored more territory. When you know more territory than your competitor, you have more knowledge. When you have more knowledge, you have a higher hit rate. When you have a higher hit rate, you win. It's that simple.
Yeah. And, being experimental is good. A fast-paced iterative process will always win. That's what Agile is all about. So it kind of reminds me of like a CI/CD, continuous integration, continuous deployment process within engineering. It's really, you can do that same process in sales and marketing, releasing content, fast-paced, continuous integration, changing the words, doing multiple different variations, and then just small deployments one at a time, but constantly multiple times a day. That is
You have just described the strategy sprints method. It took me 20 years to build it, but you have described it in 20 seconds.
Well, I guess you're welcome. I don't know. That's awesome. I love it.
I could have wrote this book much faster with your help.
Yeah, I don't know, man. It's just the way that we've always done things, I guess. It's once you make enough mistakes, and we've made plenty, and I've made plenty in my life. My partner Tim has made plenty in his life too, of 38 years of a career or something like that, to just as a CTO, just constantly making those mistakes. You learn really quick. It's the more disastrous the result is, the more you better learn from it. And if you choose not to learn from it, my God, God help you. Right.
I gave a TEDx talk once, and guess how much revenue I made from that TEDx talk?
0, because it's just a talk.
Exactly. But if now from one podcast, a small podcast, how much revenue sometimes is generated for strategy sprints?
No, I have no idea.
Sometimes it's 150,000, sometimes it's 170,000 after one small podcast. And I was on TEDx and 0. And that was the most important mistake of my life, because I realized, hey, if you don't have a conversion engine behind it, whatever the awareness piece is, you can have millions of eyeballs on it, nothing happens. And so that's why you can be on TV, you can be on Oprah, nothing happens if you don't have the conversion engine built and tested and optimized in the background. So after learning that, I became a super funnel hacker and funnel optimizer, and I was just thinking about each conversions from stage to stage and building those things before I go to the next stage.
Yeah, what do you want to happen next? If the audience is like, intrigued, they loved it, everything's great. If they're not given direction of what happens next or what they should be doing next, you're not going to get business from anything. I don't care.
Exactly.
You can give a State of the Union address. It doesn't matter. You'll get nothing out of it if you don't ask people for something. You have to ask the listener, ask the viewer, ask the experiencer, and so on. Well, this is a good spot here to move on to our next segment now. So I've got a question for you, is that if anybody listening to this were to forget everything that we just talked about today, what would be the one thing that you want them to apply to their business and take home with them today so that they can improve their process or improve their business?
Most things are outside of your control. So control the few things that you can control. And these are your daily habit, weekly habit, and monthly habit. Daily habit, review how you allocate your time and learn from it and start delegating and automating from there. Weekly habit, get a real-time dashboard of your most important numbers and get them in a way that is easy for your team to see, to like, to improve every week. And monthly habit, check, are you running in the right direction at the right pace? Quick competitive analysis, cut costs where you are losing and reinvest them where you are winning.
That's fantastic advice, actually. Yeah. Everybody who heard that, do it. Really. It works. Now, next question is, what's the best place to find you? And what's the best place to get in touch with either you or your team?
Yeah, we are at strategysprints.com. And even the things that we just discussed, the daily habit, weekly habit, monthly habit, people can download it. It's open source tools. We want them to be better. The more people use them, the better they become. So they're open source on our website. And it's really strategysprints.com. Plus, I just wrote strategy sprints. It's available on Amazon. People say it helps them, even if it's just a book. People say it helps them really because it's full of blueprints and checklists. And this is where you can also find the book.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm going to pick up a copy. Appreciate that. And so everybody, I want to say thank you to Simon Severino here for delivering such a wonderful podcast of something that so many people need to be aware of or have no idea even exists. So Simon, I want to say thank you.
Thank you, Rob. Thank you, everybody. Keep rolling.
Of course. Now, I want to thank the sponsor as well, White Rabbit Intel. Know more, win more, close often. So you can predict who's a fit before you reach out to them and hyper-target your marketplace. So that way you are generating leads that actually make sense to do so, and you're not contacting 1,000 people for 15 opportunities to surface and an even lower closing rate, right? Thank you so much, everybody. If you share this, please use hashtag DTRH podcast. Again, that's hashtag DTRH podcast. And you can find it at podcasts.whiterabbitintel.com. Thank you so much. Look forward to next week's release. If you enjoyed this episode, follow Down the Rabbit Hole podcast for new episodes weekly on Podbean, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, Pandora, and YouTube. If you'd like to apply to be featured on the podcast or recommend a featured guest, please feel free to email us at theteam@whiterabbitintel.com.